Hey guys, today we're going to talk about getting some axle shafts and getting some freewheeling hubs on that front axle. I've got the rear end just about finished. Still waiting on some lug studs to set in the hubs, and then I'll put those on. 11-inch brakes came in and they're on. I've got some stainless steel brake lines run on there. I'll show you that in a minute. But right now, this is a Bendix joint axle shaft. Came out of that CJ2A front end, and it's all greasy. You see those threads, Gary?
Yes.
Okay. When you have threads on your axle, you'll have a nut and washer, and you'll have some shims behind your drive flange, and they look like that. And what you're doing is you're setting the distance this way. Picking that up, Gary?
Yep.
You're setting the distance that way. If it's too far out, you'll snap the ears off. It's too far in, you're going to bind. So you do that with shims and a nut. And your spindle, this is the one that's all chewed up. Your spindle won't have a flange on it. It'll just be a bushing in there. And that'll be on there. And that'll run tight right up against your axle. This particular Jeep is getting some freewheeling hubs, and it's going to do some trail riding, and I know that for sure because that's what the owner told me. He's taking this out to Moab, doing some trail riding with it. I don't like the Bendix joint for heavy off-road use, and modern hubs won't fit with those threads there. The older hubs, the Cutlass, and a bunch of older hubs were big enough where you could leave your threads on there and you could shim it and you could get that right. We're going to use a modern worn hub, and there's just not enough room in there for a nut. The biggest thing you don't want to do is cut those threads off to fit hubs on there. If you do that, there's going to be nothing to hold this distance here, and you'll, like I say, you'll break the ears off, you'll throw the balls out. It will fail fairly quickly. So I'm going to clean up the bench a little bit here and get the other axles out, and I'll show you what I like to do when I put hubs and axles together. Okay guys, this is a modern Spicer U-joint. They're super heavy duty, they're durable, they last a long time, they don't break as easy as the Bendix or the Zeppa joint. So this is what's going to go in there. And when you switch from your threaded end axle shaft to Spicer, and this is what I recommend for basically any Jeep that does any kind of off-road, and it's a real good shaft. There's your original spindle, and it's got the pressed in bushing. But when you switch, you take that bushing out. Can you pick that up, Gary?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay. There's going to be a shoulder on there, and that shoulder is critical. You see that one has no shoulder. You need the flange bushing in there. The unflanged bushing is basically going to be on CJ2As. You might get into a little 3A production, but mostly by 3As they were going with the flange bushing and getting away with the threaded axles, things like that. So that's the first thing you do. You pop your bushing out, you get a flange bushing, you put that in there, and that will just sit right up against your axle shaft, and you'll have the right distance. Everything will be set with your flange bushing. So that's step number one.
So these flanged bushings, are they readily available?
You can get flange bushings. There's still a pretty good supply of new old stock. The ones that come from some of the less popular Jeep part suppliers are not the right inner diameter, and you'll have trouble with it. Your axle will be floating around. get them from a reputable source or new old stock if you can get them, because they could be a real pain. So the axle will go in just normal, like any other axle. The spindle will go on next, and then by the time we get our hub and all that stuff on there, there's your hub. If I can get it on the end here. Okay, that'll go on there. And then what holds that joint from moving back and forth, the end there has a little groove for a snap ring. And you put that snap ring on, your hub will obviously be here because your other hub is on. That snap ring goes on, and then your cap. So when you disassemble them, you pull your cap off, you take your snap ring off, and then you pull your hub off. So this is the way I like to do it. I've been doing it like this for years. I don't have failures with these. They work exceptionally well, and you don't have to worry about shimming the axle or the joint or anything like that. And it'll last a long time. And like I say, that's probably the strongest joint you can get. Now I want to show you something before you put these in. Another little thing you have to do. I've got to go get some tools. I'll be right back with you. Okay, these axles come from Spicer, because Spicer doesn't really know what these are for. They're just making axles. And they come with the grease fitting right here. Now if this was outside and you could get at it, or it was in an open knuckle application, you'd be able to get a needle greaser in there and grease that. This is going in a closed knuckle, and you know there's a mixture of grease in there. So there's a rubber seal right here, or if this was out in, like I say, an open knuckle, that would keep water and dust and dirt and everything out of there. You seen that, Gary?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So what we want to do, and this is critical, because if you don't take these seals off, you're not going to get any grease into the needle bearings. So it's kind of a pain because that's a tight seal. But I'm trying to cut it and pry it out of there. It can be tricky. Let's see if I can get it back here. I've seen a lot of guys put Spicer joints in, not take these seals out, and then there's no way to get grease in there, and they think that because it's in the bath of grease that it will be greased, but it won't get by these rubber seals. And like I say, they're a nuisance to get off. So just take your time, get these seals off. I'm eventually going to get this one off. Okay, that's what your seal is going to look like when you get it off. Take your time, get them all off. And I don't know if you can see in there, but all the needles are exposed. They can't fall out. Don't go thinking that they're going to fall out on you. They're up against the stop. Now as this is turning in the knuckle, like this, it's picking up grease. And it's greasing every needle bearing as it should. And they seem to last forever. As long as grease can get in there, they're going to last forever. Now another set of axles I took apart was from a later CJ5, and that had the original Spicer joints in it. And it looks exactly like this looks. There's no rubber seal on it because they knew what the axle was for when they were doing it. Now, like I say, I don't think Spicer realizes it's going in a closed knuckle. But this is exactly what it looks like. It has no seals. You can see the end of the bearings, and they really last forever when you allow them to be greased by taking those seals off. So that's another little trick you got to do if you're switching over to Spicers that you buy new. So I'm going to finish taking the seals off, and I'll be back with you. Okay guys, we're getting ready to put the axles in, and I always like to fill up the housings with lubricant, knuckle lube, and gear oil and stuff. This particular customer had already bought the stuff, but I did a project a while back, and it had tags all over the rear end and this and that, and no oil, and one was right on the fill plug, no oil. Well, the guy took it, and wasn't long after I got a phone call that something was wrong. The Jeep wasn't moving, and he drove it on the highway with no gear oil, and it destroyed the rear end, and pinion almost welded itself to the cup. It was just a disaster in there. But I wound up taking it apart, and I don't let anything leave here without lube now, because yeah, I'm afraid of trouble like that. But I do sell the knuckle lube, and I still see a lot of places people are wondering where to get knuckle lube and this, and you know, I have it. It's the right stuff, and it is available. But I do get a lot of calls on how to put it out, how to put it in the knuckle. So what I have here is just a bag. Some wiring came in here or something, and I've got a nozzle like you get off a gear oil or something. I'm just going to cut the corner of the bag open. Just going to stick that through. I'm going to take a little black tape and run that around there. Apparently that's old junky tape, but just make it secure. And this is the easiest way. If you don't have the axle completely apart and you're just going through the fill hole, which I don't recommend, but a lot of guys do that. I like everything to be squeaky clean in there before I add the new lube that I sell. And but you do it however you like, and if you have to fill it through the fill hole, just put that in the fill hole, squeeze the bag, and it'll go right in. I'm going to fill this up with the knuckle lube and show you how that works. Okay guys, here is the knuckle lube that I've developed with a lubricant company, and I've got my bag filled now. I have to get it in big drums, but when you get it, you'll get it in a 1-gallon container, and you just go in there with your hands, and I think you can see how it's the right viscosity. And this will run from, I'm pretty sure, I don't have the sheet in front of me, but I think this will work from 85 degrees below zero to close to 400 degrees without breaking down. And like I say, when you get it, if you have your axle apart, you just reach in the 1-gallon bucket and reach in there and stuff it in there. But I'm going to show you how the bag works. I'm going to move over to the axle, and I'll just show you quick how it goes in there, and you can see how that works.
Hang on. Let me get, I want to make sure I'm... Ready?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay guys, here's another way of lubing this guy. Just turn the axle up if you got it on your bench. Set a funnel in there. And then just pour it right in. And if you want to go have a beer or a cup of coffee or something like that, it'll flow in by itself. If not, I just go after it with a little, this is just a hex key. And I just kind of stir it around, poke it down in there. I think this is about the easiest way to do it, and it just takes a little bit of time and patience, and it'll all flow down in there. Every now and again, turn the axle, and that's how you can fill up your knuckle. Another easy way, but you got to have the axle out of the vehicle to do it. But I think it's about the easiest way that I found. So brakes are on, spindles are on, everything's bolted up with good grade 8 bolts, because that's another area there that can go bad. So we took the factory bolts out, put American made grade 8 bolts in there. Brake hoses are on. I got to run some lines on this one, and again I'm waiting on some lug studs so I can press them in the hubs, and that's where I'm at on this particular axle. And I think we'll end this one here today, and I will catch you on the next video where everything should be finished up and ready to be delivered. Thanks for watching.